Do you ever have one of those seasons, like one of those times where life is just like really, really just too much? It's just too hard. For me, that was the year 2017. It was the year that my mom was diagnosed with a brain lymphoma. And that whole year leading up to her death was just a series of hard things after hard things. My mom died that December. It was this exhausting combination of hospital visits, chemotherapy, infusions, biopsies, PET scans, and eventually a full stem cell transplant. My mom chose to receive treatment in Rochester at Mayo Clinic, and at the time we were living in Des Moines, Iowa, and it was about 3 hours and 5 minutes, to be exact, to go from my house to the hospital so that I could go and help take care of my mom. Because of the intensity of her treatment plan, she had to actually be an inpatient for 5 days every other week. So all her chemotherapy would be received as an inpatient at the hospital. And then the weeks that she was home, they weren't great either. They were full of fevers and side effects and weaknesses and all the things that you sort of have to look out for when you're taking care of somebody who has cancer. During the same season, I was working full time at a congregation, and I was running this after school program for inner city kids, and I was preaching and I was teaching and leading weekly Bible study. At home, I was trying to parent my 4 children and trying to keep their life in some sort of normal rhythm with all their schools and sports and activities. And at the same time, I was trying to help upkeep my parents' home as well as my own home. I was trying to get their lawn mowed and pick up their mail so that they didn't have to worry about that when they were at the hospital in Rochester. It was the kind of insane schedule that could only be done because I didn't feel like I had any other option. I loved my mom, and there wasn't anything that I wouldn't do for her. And I love my dad, and he needed help in order to get through this really hard season. I'll never forget that there was one night I drove up to Rochester to give my dad one night off of those 5 days of inpatient chemotherapy. And my dad went to a hotel for the night, and I stayed there by her bedside. And it was a rough night, like all the side effects from chemo, fevers and monitors beeping. And my mom was just really sick. And I didn't get a lot of sleep that night. My dad came back to the hospital well rested in the morning from being at the hotel, and I gave him a hug and I said goodbye. I stopped by Caribou, I got a large coffee, and I got in the car, and I was going to make my 3 hour and 5 minute drive back to Des Moines so I could do an early afternoon funeral on that same day. I called my husband to check and make sure that the kids just had everything ready to go from the car, to make sure that they were ready for school and that we had the afternoon all planned so that we could kind of do this in some sort of synchronicity. And I was driving, and I'm exhausted. And that's when I saw it. When I saw the sign that said, "Welcome to Wisconsin." That's right. I had driven a full hour in the wrong direction. And I got off the road and I pulled over at this gas station, and I just fully bawled my eyes out. I was just at the end of my rope. Friends, 40% of Americans today report that their stress this year in 2025 is at an all-time high, meaning that nearly half of us are at our breaking point. And when this has been researched, there's been a number of reasons, and none of them are really going to surprise you. People are stressed because of financial worries or global instability, social disconnect, meaning that they don't have time to get together with the people that they love and care about, or they're having mental health struggles or workplace pressures, or these relationship demands, your partner, your kids, all of those things. I found this great definition of stress, and I love how it kind of explains what it does to us. Stress is when the demands placed on you exceeds the resources available to you. There's a gap between the demands put on you and the resources that you have. Like what you want to get done exceeds the amount of time you actually have in order to get that thing done. Or when the perceived expectations of others exceeds your ability to sort of meet those expectations. Or when your bills exceeds your finances and your ability to pay them off, or your patience that your kids require, then they drive you crazy to do that thing, exceeds the patience that you already have. And there's a gap in there. Or when the relational energy that you have exceeds what you can actually put into that relationship. or the worries of the world actually exceeds your ability to do anything about them, or when what we think that the world requires and wants of us exceeds what we're actually capable of doing within our finite mortal life. Stress happens when the demand placed on us exceeds the resources available to us. And when there's this gap, that's when we experience stress. And we all know what this stress feels like. Now, we start to feel irritable and overwhelmed or numb. We feel lonely or tired or worried or anxious. Well, let's be honest. In our culture, we're taught that if we're experiencing stress, we're supposed to act like just like everything is fine. It's no problem. I can shove these stressful feelings away and I can pull myself back together so I can present myself to all the people in my lives. And then on top of it, we are sold ways to decrease our stress. We get advertisements that say, hey, take my masterclass and learn how not to get into the mess you got yourself in the first place. Or we hire coaches, or we buy these fancy journals to sort of plan all of our every single days out. We get self-help books and we download complicated software or tools to sort of map out our days so that we can sort of figure out how to get that demand to meet those resources so we can get more done. We have this idea that we have to accomplish more, sleep less, hustle more, get our stuff together, work harder, and then we think maybe someday we'll be able to actually close this gap. Like somehow it's like miraculously achievable. And then on top of it, we lie to ourselves about it. We tell ourselves things like, once hockey season is over, then, or once I take care of this credit card debt, then, or once we get through May, then, or once summer comes, or once I get to vacation, or once I get my exercise routine in place, then, or when the chemo is done, then, or after the merger happens, then, or if I can just get this kid to kindergarten, then I'll take a break. Then it'll be okay. But here's the truth. If the season doesn't end, if we don't get a break, if we don't have a solution, an active solution to our stress, we end up finding ourselves in Wisconsin. When my kids were little, they loved the book, Going on a Bear Hunt. Do you remember this story? It was like you kind of do this little pat thing and you say, going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. I'm not scared. What a beautiful day. Look over there, long wavy glass. And then here comes the part that the kids love. You can't go under it. You can't go over it. You can't go around it. So I guess we'll go through it. Friends, this is how stress works. We can't go under it. We can't go over it. We can't go around it. We have to go through it. Friends, we have to feel the feelings. And this is really hard for us because we live in a culture that taught us that we don't feel the things that we actually feel, and we don't talk about the things that we really need to talk about. We're taught that it's up to us to sort of deal with it on our own. And many of us, if you're like me, we were raised in these beautiful stoic families, like Scandinavian, German families out there. When I was a teenager, my family and I were living in Dallas, Texas, and just 3 weeks into my senior year of high school, my dad got transferred from Dallas, Texas to Des Moines, Iowa, where he currently lives. And he and my mom made the very bold decision, which I had no appreciation for at the time because I was 17 years old, that my dad would get an apartment in Des Moines, Iowa, and then he would commute from Dallas, Texas to Des Moines every single week. Sunday night he would fly out, and Friday night he would come back. Now here's my mom in Texas, and she's got no extended family there. We had only even lived there for a couple of years, and she's raising these 4 kids on her own, 3 of which at the time were teenagers. And I'll be honest, I wasn't the easiest high school teenage daughter. There was one day when I walked past my mom's room, and I could hear her crying on the other side of the door. And I sort of just like gently knocked, and the door was locked. And she said, just a minute, just a minute. And then she came out like everything was perfect. And I tell you this story because I think it's a lot of our stories. We have these generations of kids that grew up never seeing their dad express any emotion except for happy and angry because it wasn't socially permissible. I saw my dad cry once when I was growing up, and it was at his dad's funeral. I'll be honest, now my dad cries all the time. It's like it took him 60 years in order to give himself the permission it was to be fully human. Because being fully human means that we have this entire library of emotions, these emotions that God has given us. And so we have to give ourselves permission to be able to feel them. Yet, studies show that if we don't take the time to go through it, don't take the time to feel our feelings, if we don't take the time to process our stress, to talk it out, to cry it out, to scream it out, to run it out, what ends up happening is that all this stress, all these gaps between demands and resources, all these feelings that we have around them, they actually get stuck in our bodies. And when there's too many of them stuck in our bodies, we experience what's called burnout. Now, burnout is actually really different than stress. It happens when we've been under stress for so long that we've completely exhausted our resources. And research actually shows that burnout shows up differently for men than it does for women. For men, it usually shows up as depersonalization. It's sort of this attitude of indifference, which includes a lack of empathy for other people. It's kind of a cynical, not motivated, just sort of a meh or numb to the world. It's like not trying to feel anything. And for women, burnout usually shows up as emotional exhaustion. It's a feeling of being worn out, tired, and drained, just tapped out of all available resources. And if I'm really honest, this is why I chose this topic for our Mother's Day weekend. Friends, most moms are emotionally exhausted. The moms in our culture are not okay. The demands that it takes to be a mom these days exceeds by far the resources available to most women. The expectations on women in our culture are at an unsustainable level. And I hear this every single day, probably. Women who have just reached their limit. They're trying to manage their family and advance their career, making sure this, that, and the other thing are all taken care of while living in this Pinterest perfect home and having six-pack abs and frizz-free hair. I hear from moms all the time who feel like they're failing. They feel like they don't measure up, like they're not enough, like they lack some secret sauce in order to sort of get everything done. They feel like they don't have enough patience, enough time, enough skills, enough money, enough sleep, enough brain space in order to keep it all together. The demands exceed the resources. And if you're watching this today and you find yourself feeling this way, I get it and I see you because I have been on the side of the road in Wisconsin. Friends, this isn't the life that God wants for us, whether we're men or women. God did not design humans to be constantly stressed out, numb, and emotionally exhausted. You see, I think when Jesus looked at his disciples and he said this, he said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." You see, I think Jesus meant it. So then the question, well, how do we do that? So there's this great story in the Bible in the Old Testament. It's just a couple of chapters. It's about the prophet Elijah. Now his story is just really short, but it's this epic tale of God's work in the world. Now first Elijah is called and he's appointed to be a prophet to the kingdom of Israel. And part of his appointment means that he has to call out this terrible king Ahab, because what Ahab has done is that he has built a temple to a pagan god, Baal, in the temple. One of the things that highlights Elijah's work is that he ends up meeting a widow, and then he actually gets to raise her son from the dead. Eventually, Elijah has to go toe-to-toe with Baal's prophets. And so he goes and he's up against 450 of them. And they're going to see whose God shows up. Is it the God of Israel or is it Baal? And after this whole series of events, God defeats all of the prophets of Baal and they all die. And this actually enrages Ahab's wife, Queen Jezebel. And Jezebel, she does this threat to go ahead and kill Elijah, have him killed. That's right, friends, 450 for Elijah, no problem. A threat from one woman, and Elijah, he is just undone. Now here's how the story goes. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush and he sat down under it and he prayed that he might die. "I've had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." Here, Elijah is exhausted. He's emotionally spent and he doesn't care anymore. And he's afraid of his life, but he's burnt out. He's at the point where he's got nothing left. And he very dramatically says, "That's it, God. Just take my life. Let me die here. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Just go ahead and God, get it over with." But then Elijah laid down under a bush and fell asleep. And all at once an angel touched him and said, "Elijah, let's get up and eat." And he looked around, and there by his head was some baked bread over hot coals and a jar of water. And he ate and he drank, and then he laid down again. What does God have Elijah do when Elijah has reached his limit? Take a nap. Take a nap, drink some water, eat some good food, and then go back to sleep again. Then the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank. Friends, how do we deal with our stress? Well, I put it in 3 ways so you could remember it when you're in a stressful moment. First, we rest, and then we protest, and then we invest. Now, rest, it's not just for special occasions. It's not just when the season is over, but regular, intentional intervals so that we ourselves can work the stress out of our body. So we can take the feelings that we have put in and we can feel them and take the time to recover. Now, the churchy word for this kind of rest is Sabbath. Now, the Sabbath is a moment or an hour or a day to step out of the commodity production hamster wheel culture we live in with intention. It's a moment, an hour, a day to step out of the busyness of modern life, not because you're finished with the work, but because it's time to stop. It's a moment, an hour, or a day to decompress, to find some margin, some breathing room, some space so you can process all the things. It's a moment, an hour, a day to trust that God is going to do God's work on behalf of you. That your value isn't based on what you do or achieve in this life. That you're not here to be productive. You're here to be you. And that's more than enough. You see, God cared about Elijah's health more than he cared about defeating Jezebel or all the false gods. God cares more about you too. Now, the second one in our rhyming is protest. It's to sit there and say, you know what? Some of these things are not okay. It's pushing it back against the narrative that says you have to do it all. And instead it just says, you know what, it is okay for me to admit that I can't. This protest is kind of an act of resistance. It's saying no to the busy culture of now, the hustle, the do more, this 24/7 mentality of consumption, achievement, accomplishment, production, and performance. It's saying no. Nope. It is okay for me to feel my feelings and feel the way that I am, and it's being brave and vulnerable about it. And now the third one of us, invest. You see, burnout, it's the curse of the competent. People who burn out are the people who choose to try and do it all instead of asking other people for help. The people who say, you know what, it's just too hard for me to explain it to you, so I'm just going to do it myself. Friends, self-care is not the cure for burnout. A bubble bath isn't going to fix all of those feelings. In fact, it's not even individual changes, but studies show that to recover from stress and burnout, it's actually community care. It's us investing in the health and well-being of the people around us, us investing in other people's well-being just for the sake of the good of humanity. Friends, when I sat there and I cried in the stupid Wisconsin parking lot, I realized that despite all of my effort, that I was really, really not okay. That I couldn't keep helping my parents. I was no good to the church or my children or my family unless I got some help. And so kind of in that moment, I texted a group of close friends and family members explaining that I had ended up accidentally in Wisconsin and that I needed help. And you know what those friends and family did? They invested in me. They said, Angie, you know what? Let me pick up the kids from school this week. Someone said, let me take over your mom and dad's lawn. I will take that on. My work said, hey, why don't you work from home a couple of days a week instead of being at the church every day? My sister-in-law, Tessa, actually planned and implemented my son Sawyer's entire classroom party that I was supposed to be in charge of. A friend came over randomly and just did all the laundry, did all 20 loads to get me all caught up. Friends, invest in the people around you, and then inversely, let them invest in you. after Elijah got some rest and some food, the Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." And then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. Then after the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. God's not in the stress of the wind. God's not in the noise of the earthquake. God's not in the heat of the fire. Friends, God is in the whisper. So my hope for you, my prayer, is that you'll take this little moment to know that with God, you do have the resources to meet the demand. And that is what this community is for. Friends, that is what church is for, investing in you because you have a God who is on your side. So if today you find yourself asking, am I okay? Am I ever going to be okay? Hear God whispering to you today, my beloved, take a rest. You do not have to do it all by yourself because you weren't designed to. I am with you. You're enough. You're safe. You're wanted. You're loved. You're not alone, and you never have been. Just rest, because I've got you. I've always got you. Amen.
I'm lost and broken, all alone in this road. The wheels keep turning, but the feeling is gone. When I feel I'm on my own, but you remind me I am not alone. You say I'd leave 99, leave them all behind to find you. For you alone, I'd leave 99, leave them all behind to find you. It's dark and lonely and the path is unclear. Can't move my feet because I'm frozen with fear. And you say, my child, I am always here. I'm by your side. I leave 99, leave them all behind to find you. For you alone, I leave 99, leave them all behind to find you. You're never too far down. Promise you'll be found. I'll reach into the mud and miry clay. Pursue you to the end, like a faithful friend. Nothing in this world will keep me away. I leave 99, leave them all behind to find you. For you alone, I leave 99, leave them all behind to find you. To find you.
Will you please pray with me the prayer our Lord taught us? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Hey friends, here at Calvary, we would love for you to get engaged in the life and ministry of this church. We're so proud of what we get to do on God's behalf, and we want you to be a part of that. You can always do that by joining our email list. It's on our website, calvaryalex.org. But there are other ways to get engaged too. My friends Sam and Miko are going to tell you all about it.
Hello everybody, my name is Miko and this is my mom, Sam. Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Thanks, Miko. Our family's been a part of the Calvary community for 9 years. And Miko, what would you say your favorite part of church is?
We get to eat the suckers at church and the music.
Today, we're here to bring you Calvary's top 3 simple ways to help you know what's going on and coming up at the church. Number 1, to all you moms, grandmas, and mother-like figures, Happy Mother's Day. We're honored you chose to worship with us, and while this is certainly a day to celebrate for so many of you, we want to acknowledge that Mother's Day can be hard for many of us too. Part of our family story is that in February 2020, our world was turned upside down when our daughter Solveig was stillborn. This means that Mother's Day can be a mixed bag of emotions, and as a church, we want to know that we see you, know that you have a community of faith and a God who is walking alongside you in both the mountains and the valleys.
I love you, Mom.
Number 2, we love kids and students at Calvary, and as a church, our future relies on the faith of the next generation. This month, through our Take Stock fundraiser, we're looking for stakeholders to invest in the faith and journey of Calvary kids and students. Shares are $50, and they support programs like the high school boat trip, Vacation Bible School, and Bible Camp. Miko, what do you love most about VBS?
My cousin Charlie comes and the opening music with Nolan when he dresses like a banana.
Scan the QR code to learn more and to make an investment that's sure to pay huge dividends. And number 3, as we inch closer to summer, that means Calvary in-person's worship schedule is changing. From Memorial Day through Labor Day, our 10:30 modern service moves off-site to Luther Crest Bible Camp. Luther Crest serves brunch starting at 9:30, and worship is held outside on the shores of Lake Carlis. We have everything you need to worship outdoors. There are golf carts if you need a ride down the hill, and the benches or camping chairs for you to sit on. There are even blankets if you prefer to spread out on the hills.
I love Calvary at the lake because we get to see the sun and the music.
Calvary at the Lake is a great worship experience for friends and family to attend with you. Pick up a card or visit our special website, calvaryathelake.com, and think of someone you can invite. If you're one of our regular online worshipers, consider making a summer road trip to visit us. Believe it or not, we have people who do this every summer, and we love to connect with you. Scan the QR code to learn more and to sign up for text messages relating to Calvary at the Lake each weekend of the summer. If it rains, we simply move the modern service back to Calvary's building, and these text messages will let you know. And even if you typically attend Calvary's 8:30 traditional worship, consider checking it out sometime. You can make it to brunch if you leave right after worship is done.
Thanks everybody and Happy Mother's Day.
Hey, thanks Sam and Miko. Friends, we're going to close with a time of generosity, and there are a number of ways in that you can give, and they're on your screen. First of all, you can go to that same website, calvaryalex.org, and click on the button that says Give. The second is that you can write a check and mail it to the church at 605 Douglas Street, Alexandria, Minnesota, 56308. Or the third, you can call the church with the number on your screen, and we'll help you figure it out. Thanks so much. Have a great day.